You know, when I first met Colonel Parker in Nashville at the recording session before we went through the Sinatra show, he didn't know me. He had no idea who I was. All I know was this kid from Chicago. I mean, he was a little leery of me. But why is he here? You know, and Elvis introduced me to him. He was very nice to him, but I know that he was a little standoffish. So I really don't think he knew what I was going to do around there. But then I guess after a while, you know, I was sort of the people that he would contact to tell Elvis things, and we got to sort of become friends. He realized I was doing a job that had to be done, and I wasn't goofing off. And he had a good relationship with a lot of the other guys because he knew them a lot more, because they were, like, Lamar was around, Gene Smith was around, and he knew Red. It took a while, but then we became very close. And I had a lot of respect for him. He had a lot of respect for me. And he knew I was doing my job. After a while, we became very close friends.
Colonel Parker probably was one of the most degenerate gamblers I've ever known in my life. He played roulette and would put chips on every number. He would play craps and bet the horn, the center. One night I was up about, I think I was up $50,000-$60,000. Remember, I was running the crap table crazy, and he came up and took my money and put it on Don't Pass.
You threw a 7.
And I threw a 7 and lost it all. One pot. And I wanted to throw up, but I couldn't. And I said, Jesus God, I said, I've worked my butt off here. He said, how much did you start off with? I said, I started off with $2,000. So he counted out $2,000 and gave it to me. He said, now you're even. I'm like, God almighty. But I mean, he was right. I was even.
Colonel gambled in a way.
I only lost $2,000.
We all have our little idiosyncrasies.
That was
his was gambling. And I loved him to death, but he didn't play the game like you have to play it to win. I mean, he would go through with those on roulette, and he would drop 5 or 6 chips there, 2 on that one, 10 or 12 on this one, and whatever fell out of his hand, that's what he'd do. And when he hit, he didn't really win, because he had more bet than what it was.
But he thought he did.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, one night in between shows, this was in '70, and we were at the crap table, and he called me and said, listen, he said, you got to stay with me here. And I said, well, I said, I've got to go upstairs early. He said, no, you stay here. He said, I'll get you up there on time. And I said, okay. So in a period of an hour and a half, he lost over $1.25 million. I turned around and looked at him. I said, you got to be wealthy. I said, good God. He said, well, it all works out in the end. He almost became a shill for the hotel. The way he drew people to the table.
When we were playing Vegas and I was going through, I'd got Elvis downstairs for the earlier show, and I had to go back up to the suite. So instead of going through the back corridors, I went out the front and went through the casino and then the showroom. And Colonel was at a roulette table there, and my wife was pregnant. As I went by, I just said hi to him, Mr. Parkhill, George Parkhill, RCA exec, always with him. And Colonel said, Sonny, give me a number. And I said, well, my child is due on the 24th of September, so 24. So he put down a couple of chips on 24. It hit. Straight up. Colonel said, why didn't you tell me you was real sure about that number?
Yeah.
Because he only had 2 on there, and he had other stacks of 8 or 10, 12 on other numbers, and George is just grinning.
The great precipitation of problems was over his gambling. And Elvis believed at the end the reason he was playing the hotels was trying to pay off the Colonel's debts. So I don't know what truth there was to that. I don't know, but
we can't really speak of his personal finances because we didn't have
Elvis would consider it was a thorn in his side. And it really, really, when they started that, when they were doing all that fighting, they had me in the middle of it.
Now, there's several years from 1967 until mid-72 that I left in my own reconnaissance, and I stepped away from Elvis's world because there was a lot of resentment between the guys who worked for Elvis and especially Colonel Parker, who thought that I had an agenda, that I was trying to take Elvis away from him and perhaps become his manager or lead him down a path that was contrary to what the Colonel had in mind for Elvis. I did want Elvis to wake up. And if I had an agenda, that was it. For Elvis to wake up and to become his own man and to do the things that I know that Elvis really wanted to do. Now, at the end of Elvis's life, there's no question about it. He was on the verge and made plans to fire Colonel Parker, to cut down his entourage to 4 to 5 people. He wanted an entire new career, a new life, a new lifestyle.
I could not believe how he deteriorated in the year I was gone. When I saw the CBS special, I was shocked and I was pissed. And I called Colonel Parker one of the few times. I called him and I went and met with him. How could you let him be on camera like that? And he said, you're a manager. You have to give the artist offers. I said, how could you? He said, I put an offer out there that was ridiculous. And I took it to Elvis and he wanted to do it. The point is that he wasn't in great shape when I left. When I saw that, yeah, the man looked like he was going to die. And of course he did. But he didn't look like that when I left. When I saw him in Maryland, he looked pretty good.
Towards the end of Elvis's life, his health problems really accumulated, and his health was going downhill. I'll never forget the last time he played Vegas. A lot of phenomenal things happened. One night, I walked down to the casino. I just left Elvis, and I noticed there was a large group of people roped off, and they were all in front of a table watching someone gamble. And as I walked up, it was Colonel Parker, by himself at the table with stacks of chips. And he was playing the sucker's game of all games. It was called the Wheel of Fortune. He's at the table and he spots me in the crowd. Larry, he said, come on, come here. Sit next to me. He said, I'm not doing too well. I need some luck. Give me some good thoughts, Larry. I said, okay, Colonel, and I felt so uncomfortable. I really did. After about 5-10 minutes, I said, Colonel, maybe you'll do better now. I hope you will, but I have to get back upstairs because Elvis needs me. So I left. The Colonel was there for hours upon hours upon hours until like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he lost $1.5 million that night. When Elvis found out about it, he said, $1.5 million. That's obscene. Most people don't earn that kind of money working their whole life. And he goes and squanders money like that? He said, oh yeah, he can do it because he's got me. I'm his ransom. What's going to happen is he's going to have to turn around, make a damn deal with me coming back to Vegas, which I don't like Vegas. This is Sin City, man. I don't like it here. I'm never going to come back here again. Ironically, he never did. Truth of the matter is, I have resented Colonel Parker. God bless his soul, because he's passed on. Yeah, he was a genius, but I think he made some very, very bad choices in life. We were on tour in Louisville, Kentucky, and this was about 4 months before Elvis passed away. And Elvis, the night before, had a very difficult time. He felt he had a fever. He felt nauseous. He felt flu-like. He couldn't sleep. He had a very, very difficult night. It was late afternoon. Dr. Nick was Elvis's doctor, who traveled with us, was in the bedroom with Elvis. I was in the front room, and there was a pounding on the door, which was very unusual because we owned that floor. No one was allowed there. We had security cops positioned in front of the elevators. Everything was blocked off. So who would knock on the door like that? So I immediately walked over to the door, looked through the peephole, and there's Colonel Parker, who never came to visit Elvis on tour. I opened the door, and I said, Colonel. He said, where is he? I said, well, he's in the bedroom. Let me tell him you're here. He said, no, I'm going right in. So he, with his cane, he walked past me. He opened the door, and this is what I saw. Dr. Nick was holding Elvis's head. Elvis was in the bed, semi-conscious, and he was moaning. He was in such bad shape. And Dr. Nick was dunking Elvis's head into a bucket of ice water to revive him. The door closed. And I thought immediately, okay, this is good. This is good. Now the old man, Parker, is going to see what's going on here. And he's going to see how bad, the bad shape Elvis is in. And he's going to do something about it. I mean, he can't allow this to go on. It's inhuman. 90 seconds later, the door opened up. Colonel Parker walks up to me. We stand toe to toe, and he stares coldly into my eyes. He says, now you listen to me. The only thing that's important is that that man is on stage tonight. He turned around and walked out. And my heart sank. He didn't care. He didn't care. What about Elvis? What about Elvis? Elvis is not a tomato can. He's not a commodity. He's a human being. Elvis should have gotten rid of him years and years ago. Elvis knew it. Elvis was a good guy. He was a loyal guy. Maybe he had a bit to do with his own masochism. But he should have gotten rid of Colonel Parker. And he knew it. And he was going to do it. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that if Elvis would have lived, he would have gotten rid of Colonel Parker.
I promise you, let me tell you something. Had he known he was going to Europe, he would have gone on the strictest regimen that anybody could. And I promise you, when we got off that plane in London, he'd have scared people to death. He looks bad.
Sure, like the satellite show. Remember how I got in shape for that?
That's right. I mean, when he had a charge to do something, the great thing that kept Elvis going was from one thing to the other. What happened to him is Colonel let him die of apathy. And I blame Tom Parker as more as I blame anybody in this world for putting him the way he did, because Tom Parker was an illegal alien and would not go out of the country. And as a consequence, we stuck our ass over here forever. Had he toured the world outside the United States, he has still been fucking.
The morning Elvis died. The morning
Amen.
Elvis died.
That's why I get mad when I think about it. I get so fucking mad. That's why I say it had he gone. Had we set up a
If he'd
world,
had another
I sat
challenge,
down with
sure.
Colonel one day, I said, you know what? I said, every damn thing is just shooting your mouth off. He got really mad at me. In fact, he called Elvis to fire me once again. And I said, you got to get him out of the country. I said, we've worn this country out. You have got to get him around the world. I don't care about security. I don't care about anything. You got to get him out. And he said, we can't. I said, Colonel, you can do it. It needs to be done. And I said, this will change this whole guy's career.
I got to tell you what the Colonel told me. I got to tell you this, Martin. This isn't defense of the Colonel. It's a fact. Colonel Parker was concerned about the drugs and the guns in the other countries. He said
concerned about
he cannot get away with carrying those guns. He cannot get away with those pills. He can't do it, and we can't go there unless he can stop and not take it. Even if he's got Dr. Nick with him.
Well, he would have.
He said there's still a limit, and they'll jump on it.
He would have stopped, for Christ's sake.
That's great.
What?
Hey, take the camera off for 10 minutes.
Yeah, we just moved you off.
You weren't even on camera shooting.
I don't give a shit. I get mad. You know me, I get thinking about it, I get fucking mad.
Very good. Great.
All right, now, but get that fish part this thing.
Okay. Jeremy?